Okay, Casey, thanks for talking to us. So, a few of our members have said they're interested in learning about how to make native animal habitats in their backyard. So, thanks for talking to us about that today. But to start off with, the native animal I want to hear about is what's a Casey Pullman? Can you tell us about yourself?
Okay, so yeah, I'm Casey Pullman. I'm 30. I am kind of very passionate, slightly obsessed with native animals. So I've been with wires for almost 10 years now. I do pretty much every species. I've trained on quite a few. I was the education officer for a few years and the possum and glider coordinator. I am currently the reptile coordinator and the small mammals backup coordinator as well. So I kind of do a bit of everything. And then I also work as a lead ranger, a senior ranger up at Walkabout Wildlife Sanctuary at Calgary. So I surround myself with native animals basically.
Awesome. So, when we're looking at building a native habitat in our yard, what should we start off with in terms of the site? How do we pick a good spot?
So any spot's a good spot because you can make it a good spot. So for example, in my garden, we've got different areas for different things because we have this nice big tree here that the possums use. So we've focused this area more on the possums and that will visit it. We've got a fernery that our frogs like just up further. So you can make any spot good because there are native plants and native animals that will use it. So for example, the thing that slips people up the most, I think, is the fact that you do have to do a little bit of research. And things that will help you with that is just a basic Australian animal guide, a bird guide or a mammal guide, and then a plant guide, because they will actually show you, they'll have those little maps that show you where in Australia the animals or the plant is found. And if you're planting stuff that's found locally to your area, it's also going to be a lot less on you. So we actually completely redid this garden about 12, 13 years ago, and we made it a lot more native, and so it actually needs a lot less work because it's made for this environment. And also, because the animals will visit, it's a lot less work too. So because with the animals, they'll take care of lots of the insects and stuff. Our brush-tailed possums come down and there's no weeds because they eat them. Literally, we have weeds that crawl up over the under the fences and stuff, but because our brush-tailed possums come in, they eat them.
I didn't think of that. That's great.
So yeah, you can actually do anything with any area. So I'm not the greatest at plants. My mum's the plant person. So she'll know that, and well, when you go to a shop for plants, they'll tell you needs slight shade, needs full sun, needs to be well watered. And so you can put them in areas like that. But the basic thing to remember is to keep it different. Too many people plant too many of the same things. So we've got ground covers and shrubs and trees, and a lot of people are actually having trouble at the moment with lots of noisy miners. Everyone's seeing lots and lots of noisy miners. And the reason for that, one of the reasons, is that people plant lots of flowering things. And noisy miners and rainbow lorikeets are nectarivores, so they eat the nectar and the pollen from the flowers. So you're planting a lot of food for them, but not for other animals. So in our garden, we have lots of things that don't flower, like our ferns and stuff. And my mum is actually very annoyed at the moment because a year ago, she bought an insect house and she's tried it in different parts of the garden and there's no insects using it. And I said, Mum, that's because we've got things like lamandras and ferns, and they are natural insect houses. You don't need to go out and buy an insect house when you've got these things. So, yeah.
What other kind of like materials and equipment should we get to put into our gardens to help create habitat?
So there's a lot of different things. One thing as well that people don't think about is what covers their ground. So we've got lots of nice leaf litter here, but my parents do get the straw stuff to put on the beds as well. So if you're thinking of inviting different animals in. They won't want these pebbles that are on the pathway underneath me. They'll want other things. So you can use barks and stuff. So with this leaf litter here, it's very inviting for bandicoots. Very inviting for bandicoots. So it does help the plants as well, obviously. When the leaf litter breaks up and everything, they absorb the nutrients. But a lot of people don't think so much about what's between the plants. You also want to set up, you want to have all tools handy, because you do want to make it, when you first create a habitat, put a lot of planning into it. The more planning you put into it, the less work it'll be in the long run. So what my mum does, for instance, when she buys them in the pots, she'll put them in the garden, in the area, in the pot. She won't actually plant them for a few days and see how that plant goes in that area. Is it liking the sun, and things like that. And it takes a while to figure out the best spot, but then you've got a spot that it really likes and you plant it in, and it's a lot easier than moving it later.
What about like providing water or food? Are there any particular things that are going to be helpful?
Oh, 100% there are great things. Now with water, one thing I want to stress is being careful what you spray around that water area. So we do have some lovely fountains in our garden and bird baths. We keep them nice and clean. And if you are spraying anything, even the eucalyptus oil pesticides, which are a lot safer and not based on the more chemically ones, you got to be careful that you're not spraying it on the water. If you want water for frogs, so we add a lot of stuff to our town water for our teeth and everything, but that's not so great for frogs. So there's a couple of things. You can go to pet shops and buy the stuff, additives to the water that takes it out, but the easiest way is to just boil it and then put it out for the frogs. So they don't really do well.
Or just rainwater.
Rainwater, tank water can work. And then just like you asked, water and food. So food wise, if you plant the right plants, you don't need to put out food. So, and it's not just about flowering plants. So there's a lot of animals that eat flowering plants, but there are a lot of leafy plants that they will eat as well. Lily-pilly possums will eat, and they'll actually keep that lily-pilly nice for you. We never have to trim our lily-pilly because the possums do that for us. Things that provide seeds as well for animals, your gliders, not just your cockatoos, your gliders will eat seeds, and anything that provides insects. I did mention lomandras before. I do kind of love lomandras and all their different kinds because they have lots of insects in them and they provide really great shelter for a lot of species, lizards and bandicoots. I love bandicoots. And they'll be in there, and wombats also eat lomandras. Not that you're going to get one in your yard, but a while ago you did have a wombat visit. You don't happen to know? Yes.
Next door reserve.
Yeah. So when it comes to food, any native plant you're going to plant is going to provide food for wildlife, 100%. Whether it is straight away with the leaves, or whether it's something that provides fruit or nuts, or it attracts insects as a food. So anything native, there's something that will eat it, which is kind of handy. A little tip that I've noticed on the coast, with your callistemons and your bottle brushes, possums seem to prefer the red. And your grevilleas, they seem to prefer the red over the yellow.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but every possum I've had in care over the last 10 years, they don't tend to go for the yellow. Even the one I've currently got, I gave him a yellow grevillea. Did not care for it at all. You can also do some really cute things with anything you might have left over or not be using. So my mum has somewhere in this garden, I think it's been grown over by plants, she has a plant pot that's made out of pottery. It's not a plastic one. And she didn't have a plant for it, so she turned it on its side and we drilled a bigger hole in the back. And it's a nice little lizard shelter. Because it's ceramic and that, it's not going to get hot or anything like that, and the plants have kind of grown over it, and it's a nice little shelter for it. So you can think outside the box.
Speaking of boxes, I noticed that there's a box up in that tree there. Can you tell us about that?
So we have a microbat box in our tree, so it's specially built for microbats. The only other animal that could use it is your feather-tailed gliders, because it's actually made so that they can hit the board at the back, land on the board, and then climb up it. It's a very small sleeve. Now, with wildlife boxes, you can make microbat boxes, you can make different possum and glider boxes, and different bird boxes as well. Like, you don't have to go just one box design. So, for example, Birds in Backyards, their website, they have a couple of different, like you can do one specifically for kingfishers or a specific type of owl, because they're the different birds and possums will have different sizes to them. The boxes will be different, so you can actually not just put in a bird box, you can put in a kookaburra box or a finch box. They're quite easy to make as well, or if you know someone handy, just go around with a box of chocolates and some wood and be like, can I have this please? That's what I did. I got my dad's friend to make the microbat box, and you're just providing shelter. So the sad thing is, with our wildlife, a lot of them need hollows in trees. So there's a lot of birds that needs hollows in trees, but possums use tree hollows. We've also got little native marsupials like Antechinus that will use them, and that are really, really cute. However, our eucalyptus trees can take 150 years. If you plant one today, it's not going to have a tree hollow for at least 150 years, because we don't have woodpeckers or anything like that. So the more trees we cut down, the less hollows there are. So we recently had a kids' playground update around the corner, and I've got a possum in care because they took down the tree even though it had a hollow in it. So even though there are guidelines that tell people you have to do this if you find a tree with a hollow in it, they don't always do that. So the boxes are a great way, but don't just install it and think it's going to work. That one's made out of marine ply, and it blends in quite well with the tree, so I wasn't too worried about it. You can paint them colours, but think about the animal that's going to go into them. So if you're putting up a possum or a glider box, you need to put it so that when they come out of it, they can climb onto a branch. It's no good just putting it on a surface.
So when we're doing this, how do we know if our habitats are working? What are some signs to look out for to show that you've been successful?
Sound. So 100% you will hear animals before you'll see them. So I hear the brush-tailed possums of a night, especially it's spring at the moment, so things are making quite a lot of noise. Some of the males doing a territorial call, the male brush-tailed possum, sounds a bit like Darth Vader. I'm not kidding. I'm lying in bed of a night and I'm like, is that Darth Vader? Like, it does sound a bit like that, and I don't even watch Star Wars. You'll hear insect life. If you're hearing insect life, then you're going to be having stuff that eats insects, like microbats and bandicoots and magpies. You'll hear rustling in the trees and stuff as well. For things like your tawny frogmouths, they're really hard to spot. They camouflage really well, and obviously they have silent flight. So it's usually only when they take off and the branch that they were on moved that you know that they were there at all.
They hoot at me though. They do the whoo hoo 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 when I'm gardening. The tawnies up in the thing. Or is that a different bird? Someone's hooting at me when I'm gardening.
Tawnies don't hoot. They do a couple of different sounds, but they do a whoo whoo.
That's it.
Whoo whoo. So that's marking their territory.
Oh, so I'm in their territory.
No, they yeah, basically yeah, but they won't be too concerned with you. They'll actually be communicating to see if there's any other tawnies around. So for instance, where I work, we have tawnies in an aviary, and sometimes he'll be making that noise, then he'll stop and the one outside will start making it. And so they're just communicating with each other to make sure They don't cross territories. But yeah, you'll most likely hear animals before you see them. Like, I don't know if the sound is coming across there, but I can hear a lot of lorikeets at the moment. So yeah, keep your ears out. You can also, a lot of our animals will be active at dusk and dawn. So if you want to spot them, those are the best times for it. Your nocturnal animals will be coming out. Your diurnal, daytime animals will be going to bed. Just look. If there's a plant they're eating, you'll see that they're eating it. I love just taking a moment. I find that if I just sit in my backyard, whether it's during the day or overnight, if I just sit there quietly for a while, things will come. I'll get rosellas in the flowers and that once I'm sitting there quietly and I'm not a threat, I'm not doing sudden movements, the animals will come back and do what they're doing. And it's quite interesting. The main noise that I hear of a night is the possums climbing along the fence. They use our fence as a freeway. But yeah, so you definitely hear animals a lot more than you'll see them.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add if you want people to know about native animals on the coast?
Oh my God, there is so many things I could talk about. My dad says I could talk under wet cement. But yeah, it's just, like I said at the beginning, just get yourself a basic book of Australian animals, and it'll show you, those little maps will show you what you get where. You can hit up.
Is there a specific book you recommend, or where do we find it?
The only thing that I recommend when it comes to any books that you are getting on identifying animals or plants is ones that have hand-drawn pictures. So the ones that with photos don't always show you what that animal or that plant will look like. It'll show you what that one plant or animal that they got the photo of looks like, but that's not always what they look like. Whereas the ones with the drawings, they'll show you the male, the female, the juvenile, and they'll have them drawn in the most likely way they'll be seen. And so it's a bit more accurate, because it's very hard to get plants easy, photos of animals not so easy. So yeah, and then reach out to people as well. Like, just feel free to contact people, even if you like email a local wildlife group or land care group or something like that. There's FATS, the Frog and Tadpole Society, that you can contact if you have an interest. The people that work with these things, that volunteer with these things, they're happy to give you information, because obviously they don't just volunteer for nothing. They do it because they love it. So if you ask them questions, they're happy to talk about it because they love it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I think we're pretty much finished now. All happy?